For more on this, we're now joined in the studio by our current affairs commentator, Victor Gao. Mr. Gao, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In this early stage of investigation, it's probably too early to identify where the problem is. But where do you think the problem is? Is it from the employer, who's in lack of clear guidelines and protocols, or from the money-chasing employees' wrongdoings?
Now, first of all, I would say whatever the outcome of this case involving GSK in China, it will be a milestone case because it will trigger a real shakeup in the pharmaceutical industry in China as well as the public health sector in general. Now, right now, as you mentioned, it's a little bit too early because the law enforcement departments are still conducting their investigation. However, I've taken note of one important fact, that is the senior management of GSK was in Beijing these days, and the day before yesterday they met with the senior officers of the Ministry of Public Security. And in the meeting, GSK senior management emphasized that the company will do everything to fight against corruption of all forms, and they will rededicate themselves to higher standards and corporate governance. I think all this is very encouraging. I would say eventually there will be two different kinds of violations. One is committed by the senior management officers of GSK China, who commit such violations in defiance of the corporate policy. Now, secondly, GSK China itself may be responsible for either lack of supervision or delegating too much to their senior management, etc. But I would say that either for GSK or for China's pharmaceutical industry, despite of whatever the law enforcement departments will do, let's do our best to get the best out of this case. That is to make sure corruption will be put to an end and the patients and the customers will get the real reasonable price for the drugs.
Like you said, this case might be a milestone one because not only it reveals the corruption side of the multinational companies operating inside China, the misconducts of these companies, but also it reveals some of the loopholes inside China's pharmaceutical industry. What do you think the loopholes are, and what measures have been taken to root them out?
Well, the public health sector is one of the very few remaining sectors which have not yet been fully reformed in China, despite of China's policies of opening up to the rest of the world and reform which have been in place for more than 30 years. And as a result, most of the hospitals are government controlled and private money is not encouraged into investing in public health facilities, and doctors and nurses are paid very low wages and salaries. As a result, many hospitals imply the policy is to actually sell drugs at a high markup so that they can channel some of the money thus made in the drug sale into building their infrastructure, paying their doctors and nurses, etc. Now, in this process, which in itself is a gray area in China, but is widespread and very rampant in China, a lot of other forms of corruptions are committed. As a result, the patients suffer, the society in general suffer, and I think this is the time for this wake-up call so that the government, the drug companies, the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, as well as the patients need to really do whatever they can to reach consensus as to how much this restructuring and reform of the public health sector, especially the drug distribution sector, need to be completely reformed in China.
Yeah, so wake-up call not only for the operators, but also for the regulators. Thank you very much. That was Mr. Gao, Victor Gao, our current affairs commentator. You've been watching News Update on CCTV.